Hello, I'm the Pageant Nerd, and you're watching the third and final part of my series, Miss World vs Miss Universe.
Well, I've been watching the Miss Universe pageant since I was about 8 years old, and I can't believe that I'm here now in it.
For every aspiring pageant girl or boy, it's their dream to compete on an international stage. And these days, there is no shortage of global competitions to aim for, with seemingly more added year on year. Without a doubt, some are more prestigious than others. In women's pageantry, there is the Grand Slam group and the Big Four. But only two make up the alpha set, reigning above the rest: Miss World and Miss Universe.
Miss France et
Miss Albigeois Midi-Pyrénées.
Depending on the pageant system in a given country, a single national winner may by default be entered into both competitions, while in other countries, a range of crowns to the various pageants are awarded, or different pageants altogether are held to select their delegates. Today I'm looking at the individual women who've competed at both Miss World and Miss Universe and achieved the best results, the nearly all-conquering crossover queens. Here we go. "140 women in total have worn either the Miss World or Miss Universe crown, including the queens who resigned or were dethroned, as well as their replacements. Of those 140, 13 title holders competed in the other Alpha pageant prior to winning their crown. With Catriona Gray here as my figurine representing all Miss Universes, there have been 69 women to wear that crown, including the two queens in 2002 after Oksana Fedorova was dethroned and replaced by Justine Pasek. 5 Miss Universes first competed at Miss World, 3 of whom failed to place. They are Lebanon's Georgina Risk, who went unnoticed at Miss World 1970 but became the Middle East's first Miss Universe the following year. Angela Visser of the Netherlands, incredible that she was overlooked at Miss World 1988, considering how she dominated Miss Universe 1989 in Cancun. And Mpule Kwelahobe of Botswana, who was unplaced at Miss World 1997, but as her country's first ever Miss Universe contestant, she stormed to the title. The other 2 Miss Universe crossover queens fared much better at Miss World. Michelle McLean of Namibia reached the top 5 at Miss World 1991, before sweeping to Miss Universe glory in 1992, by far the best results for the African nation at both pageants. And the Philippines' Catriona Gray achieved the same top 5 result at Miss World 2016, leaving her heartbroken. But how she bounced back, mounting a flawless campaign in 2018 to win Binibining Pilipinas and then Miss Universe. What else do McLean and Gray have in common? Yes, die-hard fans will know they both won their Miss Universe crowns in Bangkok, Thailand. But additionally, their Miss World campaigns both took place in the USA, the only 2 times Miss World has been held stateside. Interesting also to note that had Catriona Gray been competing just a decade earlier, her crossover feat would have been impossible. Between 1992 and 2010, Binibining Pilipinas Charities held both the Miss World and Miss Universe franchises in the Philippines. And since a Binibining Pilipinas title holder is unable to compete in the pageant again, Gray would have been prevented from aiming for Miss Universe after her Miss World campaign. Switching to the Miss World winning crossover queens, on average they've fared much better in their Miss Universe campaigns beforehand, a few of them especially so. Using Agbani Darago as my Miss World figurine, there have been 71 queens who have worn the Miss World crown, including the women who resigned in 1974 and 1980, as well as their replacements. Of those 71 Miss Worlds, 8 title holders competed at Miss Universe prior to winning their crown. 4 of them placed in the top 15. Venezuela's Susana Duim was the first in 1955, before winning Miss World later that year, a full 24 years before her country would win its first Miss Universe crown. Corine Rotschafer from the Netherlands was a semi-finalist at Miss Universe 1958, before going on to win Miss World 1959. Madeline Hartog Bell of Peru made the first cut at Miss Universe 1966, then became her country's first Miss World in 1967. And Eva Rubinstein, who reached the top 15 at Miss Universe 1969, before scoring Austria's first Miss World crown 4 months later. Agbani Darago of Nigeria placed top 10 at Miss Universe 2001 in Puerto Rico, before her Miss World victory in South Africa later that year. If you hadn't worked it out already, I've featured Agbani and Catriona as they're the most recent crossover queens to win Miss World and Miss Universe respectively. And saving the best for last, there have been 3 Miss World winners who've come as close as it's humanly possible to win both Alpha titles. Yes, they all placed first runner-up at Miss Universe. Amazingly, 2 of the 3 women came from the relatively small nation of Wales. Rosemary Franklin finished second at Miss Universe 1961 before sweeping to victory at Miss World later that year. In 1974, Welsh woman Helen Morgan emulated Franklin's pageant results with a first runner-up finish at Miss Universe. Then, representing the United Kingdom, took the Miss World crown, but she only held the title for 4 days. More on that story shortly. Gina Swainson hailed from an even smaller nation than Wales, that being the tiny Bermuda located in the North Atlantic. In 1979 she finished second at Miss Universe in Perth, Australia, then took the Miss World crown in London. In terms of population, Bermuda was the smallest country to win the Miss World title until Gibraltar triumphed in 2009. The ability for women to place first runner-up at one of the Alpha pageants, then compete in the other one in the same year, has been more or less blocked for 2 reasons. In recent years, at least before COVID-19 hit, Miss World and Miss Universe have both taken place at the end of each calendar year, making it virtually impossible for nations like France, South Africa and Russia to send the same queen to both pageants as they previously had. Furthermore, a contestant who places first runner-up is now contracted to that pageant, ready to assume the title should the reigning queen be unable to complete her duties. But that hasn't always been the case. A major issue took place in 1974. As you saw earlier, Wales's Helen Morgan finished first runner-up at Miss Universe to Spain's Amparo Muñoz. But without that current day rule in place, Morgan was free to represent the United Kingdom at Miss World later that year, which she won.
And Miss World 1974 is Miss United Kingdom.
She's done it! She's done it! Helen Morgan, my goodness, what a career! Only in June, Miss Wales. She goes on to be runner-up in Miss Universe. She goes to Blackpool and wins Miss United Kingdom, and now she's Miss World. The 4th girl from the United Kingdom to win it. Rosemary Franklin, Anne Sidney, then Leslie Langley, and now Helen Morgan.
Immediately, the notorious British tabloid press caught wind of the fact Morgan was an unwed mother, and was also a named party in a divorce case, which was later dropped. Morgan had always been upfront to Miss World officials about her 18-month-old son, but bowing to pressure, Morgan relinquished the title 4 days after her crowning. Just a couple of months later, Muñoz would give up her Miss Universe title, citing homesickness. In theory, and fascinatingly, that could have opened the door for Morgan to assume the Miss Universe title. But unlike Miss World, Miss Universe didn't allow mothers to compete, rendering her ineligible to assume the role. The title was left vacant until Miss Universe 1975 was crowned. Morgan disappeared from the public eye for decades, getting married, having 2 more children and relocating to Spain. She made welcome appearances at Miss Wales 2004 as a judge, and at Miss World 2011 as a guest of pageant owner Julia Morley.
Miss Nueva Esparta, Miss Venezuela 1999, Miss Miranda,
Martina Zaragoza.
Proving that times have indeed changed is the story of Miss Venezuela 1999. Consecutive non-placements for Venezuela at Miss World in 1997 and 98 were seemingly punishment for sending their national winner to Miss Universe and their first runner-up to Miss World. As such, the Miss Venezuela organisation announced that 1999's winner, the spectacular Martina Thorogood, would compete in Miss World and then Miss Universe, should she not win Miss World. But in a strange twist of fate, Thorogood placed first runner-up at Miss World. Expecting to continue on to Miss Universe 2000, she was barred from competing, seemingly not by Miss World, but by the Miss Universe organisation. As first runner-up, there was a chance she'd be required to take over the Miss World title should India's Yukta Mukhi be forced to give up the crown. An emergency pageant was held to select Venezuela's delegate to Miss Universe 2000 in Cyprus, and its winner, Claudia Moreno, also placed first runner-up, and like Thorogood, came second to an Indian, Lara Dutta. Seemingly, the rule preventing first runners-up from competing in the other Alpha pageant was solidified shortly after this incident. But that rule doesn't stop the first runners-up competing in the other pageant at a later date. This occurred when Aruba's Zizi Lee, first runner-up at Miss World 2001, competed at Miss Universe 2004. She was unplaced. Miss World 2005 second runner-up, Ingrid Rivera of Puerto Rico, competed at Miss Universe 2008. Gabrielle Walcott earned Trinidad and Tobago a second runner-up spot at Miss World 2008, and like Rivera before her, she competed at Miss Universe 3 years later in 2011. Rivera and Walcott, like Zizi Lee, both went unplaced at Miss Universe. Based on all we've seen here, it would appear Miss World is more open to recognising previous Miss Universe runners-up than the other way round. Why is that? Leave your comments below. Lastly, I'll quickly mention some recent contestants who came ever so close to joining the lucky group of 13 victorious crossover queens covered earlier. Michaela Reis of Angola, top 10 at Miss Universe 2007, then first runner-up at Miss World 2007. Ada Aime de la Cruz of Dominican Republic, top 16 at Miss World 2007, then first runner-up at Miss Universe 2009. Yendi Phillips of Jamaica also placed top 16 at Miss World 2007, then first runner-up at Miss Universe 2010. Patricia Rodriguez of Spain, top 15 at Miss World 2008, then first runner-up at Miss Universe 2013. Tatum Keshwar of South Africa, top 10 at Miss Universe 2009, then second runner-up at Miss World 2009. And Olivia Jordan of the USA, top 20 at Miss World 2013, then second runner-up at Miss Universe 2015. That concludes this series, my friendly comparison between Miss World and Miss Universe. If you enjoyed it, please give these videos a thumbs up, and of course, check out the other clips on my channel. As always, I welcome suggestions for new videos, and while I can't get to all of them, I'm truly grateful for the ideas and ongoing support. Thanks for watching, and see you again very soon. But for now, it's goodbye from the Pageant Nerd.